Coming up, a Sad Styles production. Get into it!
Hey, Andrew, if you were to star in a game like Max Payne,
okay,
you had to have a name. Andrew's coming to town, but his name's not Andrew. It's
I'm a former football player, Navy SEAL, that is on the run, and my name is Brute Force.
Brute Force. I like that one.
Yeah.
That's really good.
I'm big.
You're big?
I'm big in this.
You're big in this.
Well, it's unlike most action movies. In this one, he's big.
Well, okay, so I'm going to take
Muscly.
I'm going to take you to the 90s.
Okay, please.
And guess what's rampant?
Seinfeld.
Pet theft.
Pet theft.
Pet theft.
Oh, okay.
And guess what happens to pet thieves?
Justice
in the form of a visit from me, Doug Pound. And it's time to pound, baby. Doug Pound.
It's not Dog Pound.
Oh, that would be a good one.
Dog Pound. DAWG. It's Dog Pound.
No, my name is Douglas, but it's not until you hear my last name that you know what's up.
It's actually Douglas Pound Cake, but we wanted to short it because it wasn't.
Well, my father, Jim Pound, and my mother, Meredith Cake. It kind of
came together.
Yes.
And welcome to the Retrograde
podcast where we remind you what you used to love and whether or not you still should.
I'm Andrew Bascom, and with me as always is the bad boy of podcasting, Mr. Bebop himself,
Mikey Gain Aaronworth. Because Max Payne, no pain there's no pain in my name, so gain instead is what you get.
Right, no pain, no gain.
No pain.
Max Payne.
Oh wait, shit,
Max gain.
I fucked it up.
Yeah,
no pain, there is gain.
Yes.
So it should have just been Mikey Aaronworth.
Once again, that's Mikey Aaronworth, the co-host of the Retrograde Podcast, and we're back for another week of the Retrograde Podcast.
Hey, Andrew, happy anniversary.
To
Max himself.
Oh. It's so sorry Max couldn't make it today for his own anniversary. Max couldn't make it.
Yeah. He was he got lost in a bottle somewhere, I think.
Oh yeah, right.
So first of all, obviously 10th year anniversary of Max Payne. It came out May 15th, 2012.
Okay.
Max Payne 3, right? On the Xbox 360. That's why we're doing this game. Not quite a retro game, but usually that 2012 cutout is kind of what we base our games on. And it's also just a game that I fucking loved. I'm always looking for an excuse to go back and play it. Here's my concern.
Okay.
If they ever bring back the franchise of Max Payne, which I hope they do at some point.
Yes.
But if they do they have to make it so that he fell off the wagon again?
That's why he's been gone?
That's why he's been gone?
Yeah.
Because he cleans himself up in Max Payne 3. It's part of his redemptive arc.
Right.
But I think part of the best parts of Max Payne was the gritty storytelling surrounding his addiction to pills and alcohol.
Right.
Pills being the one thing that gives him life in the middle of a firefight, unfortunately. And here's another thing that I've always found fucked up about Max Payne.
Right. Wow, you're just coming up firing, eh?
No, I'm just putting this together. In Max Payne 3, again, part of the story is that he goes clean.
Yes.
No more booze for me, he says.
No.
Throws that literally against the wall.
Yes.
However, he still takes a lot of pills in the middle of firefights.
Yes.
So
it's kind of like Frodo, where he's like, don't put on the ring. But other times he needs to put on the ring to survive.
Exactly. So
that's the best one I had off the top of my head.
That's a good one.
But there are ones.
Andrew, that's a good one.
Thank you very much. Or Monster Girl in Invincible.
Oh.
That every time you become the monster, you live a little bit less. Isn't that what it is?
I think it takes from your she ages down when she becomes Monster Girl.
And eventually she just will not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
that's a very specific reference. But sorry about that. But yes, the Max Payne thing, I'm just so excited to play because the last time that we played Max Payne on this podcast.
Oh, man.
We played Max Payne 1.
Yes.
And don't go back and listen to it. Just trust what I say.
Yes.
We didn't enjoy it.
No, not at all.
No.
It was a bad game. And I'll stand by that.
Yes, it also is of the era of those games.
Right.
Where just, it's in the sweet spot of going to age terribly.
Yeah, that PlayStation 2 era, there were some I don't want to be, with cancel culture and all that. I don't want to be too insensitive, too politically incorrect, but it was checks his shoulder.
Yeah, checks his shoulders. He's looking around, making sure no one's around.
Looks up,
talks into a microphone.
It was a little bit of a stinker.
Oh my God, Mike, you can't say stuff like that these days.
That's why I checked my shoulder and looked up.
And I think you're in the clear.
I think I'm in the clear.
I think you're in the clear. It was a little bit of a...
this thing on?
It's a little bit of a dud, a little bit of a stinker.
Yeah.
You know what's funny though? You said it's not really a retro game. This is the thing. But like now the retro stations, like radio stations, are playing music I grew up on.
Yes.
And I'm like,
Red Hot Chili
retro
Peppers.
just changes. It's like it's 10 years old. It's getting pretty close to like a retro status.
Sure.
You wouldn't say it's a new game,
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think every once in a while we need to readjust what we think retro games are, just because it was based on our childhood.
100%. I mean, when we started off, we started off this podcast. I think we had the cutoff of, was it 2007 or 2000?
Yeah,
I think it was around 2007. So 2012, as the podcast ages, which should be the new term for as a crow flies.
As a podcast
How
ages.
far away is that Walgreens?
As
as
the
the
podcast
podcast ages.
It's about 2 clicks that way.
Nautical miles.
Yes.
What are we doing? No, but as the podcast ages, clearly that 2007 time frame has to age with it.
And how
right?
old's the podcast?
About 4 or 5 years.
Well,
Yeah.
2007, 2012. Here we are.
Here we
Max
are.
Payne
We
3.
made it. We made
Ipso
it.
facto, show your math.
But it's funny because
Max Payne 3.
I think I don't think Max Payne would be very good at math. His name's not Math Payne. It's Max Payne. I don't think arithmetic's going to be his thing.
Well, I think somebody named Math Payne is not good at math.
Or he's so good that he causes pain in the person to whom he's mathing at.
Fair.
Right.
Yes. I think, like Good Will Hunting, Math Pain.
Math pain. He's causing
Absolutely.
math pain in people.
He's very good at it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Math is always my worst topic.
Really?
Yeah.
Topic?
To talk about.
Oh, okay.
Can't talk.
You mean subject, right?
Yes.
Okay. Discipline.
Apparently language is also a bad one for me.
The 2 lowest with a bullet. Number 2,
yeah.
language. I don't know. You were not good at math growing up?
No, I was not good at math.
Okay.
I rather, although my mom put me in Kumon. Kumon's a worldwide thing, right?
I don't know. Just in case it isn't. Do you want to explain it?
Yeah, Kumon is basically the meanest thing a parent can do for their children
It's math tutoring.
by giving them it's additional work is what it is.
It's math tutoring.
I mean, maybe if you put
How are
it
you going
that
to practice? Like just naps or something like that? Like, no,
way.
you got to do more math.
Is there a way to practice math by napping?
Maybe just earphones is like quitting smoking or something like that. And like, you do not want to smoke.
Yeah,
And you
I
take a
would have
nap.
rather done that than done math. So here's the thing about Kumon is I would get so frustrated with it. In the beginning, it's just some addition, subtraction. I can do that. Easy.
Right.
Hand it in for marks. All the
So,
people actually mark
you sound
it.
like you're pretty good at math then.
Addition, subtraction.
Just wait.
Just wait. Just you wait.
Just you wait.
Then it gets into fractions and division and all the
Right.
crazy bed mass and all that stuff. And I would be so frustrated trying to do it because you also timed yourself. And I'd also I did well in school. It's not like I needed to be going off and doing math. That I would just start crying. I would break down, start crying.
Right.
I threw a couple chairs. My mom would just be like listening in the other room, like door closed, like fuck it. He's got to burn himself out
They
eventually.
wheel you in like Hannibal Lecter. And your strategy is just utter failure. I'm going to piss myself. I'm going to start crying.
Yes.
I'm going to throw a chair like Bobby Knight. And I'm ready.
He's now a new mainstay of this podcast. He's come up in the last 3.
Your math tutor is coming in with a whip and a chair like it's a lion den. 4 + 5, Mikey. And you're like, ah!
I would cry onto the math booklets.
Tear soaked.
So we're sending a signal to the person marking like, yo, something's not right with this kid. Parents, maybe you shouldn't make him do this.
His answer was help me. Anyone who's showing around like everyone, like the child psychologist needs to work at the math tutoring session there.
I love that. I love that idea. I listen. I want to talk a little bit less about math and more
right.
about the game
Math Payne.
that we're playing
sorry.
this week. Not necessarily get into the game itself. 'Cause,
Sure.
Look, if you're new to this podcast, first of all, thanks for listening.
Yeah,
Secondly,
thank you.
typically what we do is we take a look back at the games that we used to play when we were kids. Usually it's something we had an affinity towards. We rate and review the game out of 4 bits based on our memory of the game, and then we play the game, come back and rate and review it out of 4 bits in the modern day against the likes of modern games. Before we really dig into that, though, I want to talk about the concept of a game like Max Payne.
Okay.
Because there's something unique about it. For me personally. You mentioned at the top that you're a little nervous about playing this because we played Max Payne 1 a long time ago.
Yes.
And it did not age well.
No.
It didn't just age poorly for me, Max Payne 1. I didn't like it when I first played it as a kid. I loved the idea of bullet time. I thought that was cool, but playing it was atrocious to me, even from the beginning. I didn't like it. Played it on PS2, didn't think the controller worked. Turns out Rockstar wasn't good at game shooting mechanics anyway. That remains true to this day. But Max Payne 3, I fucking loved.
Yeah.
So it goes from Max Payne 1 and 2 two games that I just dismissed, did not like, didn't want anything to do with, to Max Payne 3, which I really loved. And I want to ask you, are there any games that you can think of where the first or second or third you didn't like, but somewhere in the franchise you were able to turn it on and say, this is the one for me?
That is a great question.
You can also say the opposite, ones that had a great first entry and a terrible entry afterwards.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think, like I like a lot of people, and I wonder if this is like the prequels for Star Wars. I was such a huge fan of BioShock. Then when BioShock 2 came out, I was like, oh, this is very highly disappointing.
Yes.
And now I almost want to go back and play it again and wonder if it's
been kind of repurposed in our memories of like, BioShock 2 wasn't as bad as people say it is.
It's also maybe BioShock 1.5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wonder what other games came later that you're like, oh, this was redemptive to this whole story. Do you have one?
I'm sure there's some. I'd like to actually hear some of that for, I think Grand Theft Auto is probably like that for a lot of people. Grand Theft Auto 3, because numbers 1 and 2 were the over-the-top 2D kind of like a very different game. Grand Theft Auto 3 broke the mold and became 3D sandbox, obviously a pioneer of video games in general. I would assume a lot of people hopped onto the franchise there and never even played 1 and 2. I definitely have. I think it's more the other way, where I played a game and then the sequel, I'm just like, I don't want anything to do with. There's a lot of those ones for me.
Pokemon.
I
don't know. The franchise lost me, but at the same time, I don't like. Sometimes I don't blame people for it. It's like saying Red Dead Revolver and then Red Dead Redemption. I'm like, well, those are two different games.
Sure.
So, but of course, I like the later sequels much more than I like the original.
Yeah.
And so when saying something like Pokemon, it's like, I don't know. It just feels like I outgrew it and it outgrew me, and we just went two different directions. I don't really blame it for it. It's still obviously unbelievably popular.
Yeah.
But I think it's the same way we were saying about GTA. Is like GTA 5, based on its sales, it is only acquiring new followers. It's only acquiring new consumers.
More people seem to have played 5 versus 3. So there's probably a lot of people who jumped in there. I know, I can think back to like Jak and Daxter. The originals I never really got into, didn't like them that much. But then I think in Jak 3, they took a dark turn, which I think for the franchise is often looked at as like not so good. Like people didn't like that as much.
People?
Yeah, but I actually liked that, because in terms of like cute platforming, I always liked Ratchet and Clank more. And then when Jak 3 kind of took that darker route, I felt like it separated itself enough from the Ratchet and Clank that I'm like, oh, I can play this game.
Yeah.
I warrant that. So that's one for me. In terms of games that kind of lost me, I bet you a lot of people got into the God of War franchise with the reboot God of War on the PS4. That's kind of where it lost me, and we talk about that all the time. I listen to people talk about that game, and I'm so jealous of how much they love it.
Some people love that game.
Yeah. Are you going to try Ragnarok? I know we kind of talked about this, but we're getting closer and closer to it.
Yeah. It makes me want to go back and play the God of War remake, or the newest one, excuse me, just to go try it, and then see if like maybe I've changed, or maybe I'm now interested in this somehow.
Right.
So that before I pay and then play for Ragnarok. I don't know. My guard's up. Whereas the last one, and maybe this will work.
Yeah.
Because my guard's up. Because the last one, I came running in going like, I'm going to love this. And then kind of going like, why don't I love this like everybody else?
Yeah.
By the way, I just thought of Age of Empires. Age of Empires 2 and 3 are much better than Age of Empires 1.
Great. That's a great point.
And those ones are the ones I go back to. And I think, I'm just now thinking of my favorite games. But same as Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk perfected itself around 3. And then
it did perfect itself, but everyone played number 1. I'm thinking of jumping into the franchise. Diablo 2 would be another one for me, where like I didn't play a single second of Diablo 1, only Diablo 2. And I've heard that there's a good reason for that. It really made itself more friendly towards the player and opened itself up a little bit more.
I also think Overwatch 2 obviously will be an answer to this question. So.
Of course. Yeah. Based on the way people are talking a lot of trash about Overwatch 2 right now, even though it is still in beta and people don't seem to remember that. Also, do I expect it to change that much? Probably not.
No, I think the framework is there. What they do inside of it.
I think the framework is there. I for the life of me, I don't get what people expected. I don't know what people wanted out of Overwatch 2.
I don't know. And maybe but like, I don't know. Then we're talking about like a philosophical debate, but then isn't that the issue with Blizzard in the first place? Of that they've created a successor that was never going to succeed?
True.
They created something that was, impossible to create a successor for, and they want to make more money, and obviously that's their right.
Right.
But if nobody can be satisfied with any answer, it's like, you go from God of War and then you get the next God of War and people are like, whoa, pretty universally, we're like, this is pretty great. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't think it's the consumer's fault that they're not satisfied with the product that they receive.
That's a good point. I just think that the consumer needs to ask themselves, what would have satisfied them.
Yeah.
Splitting the player base completely and changing the game up, because I don't think that would have done it. I think Blizzard, though, you're right, should have learned from like the StarCraft 2 issue of you got a major competitive game, a scene that's built around it. You're going to split, you're going to change, and a lot of people aren't going to like the new iteration. Yeah, maybe they should have just done more like what World of Warcraft does, of like constant iterations and updates. And
subscription model.
And then back in a couple years ago, they released like World of Warcraft Vanilla, like the original build back. Like you could play it as it was originally released.
Was it called Vanilla?
That was what it was originally released. Actually, the name of that game never was World of Warcraft.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the number of people who walked into like a Baskin and Robbins or a Ben and Jerry's and expecting to come out with a video game, and they came back with the most boring ice cream that they could have gotten. It was so disappointing. Andrew, don't laugh.
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing.
It's funny.
I'm just laughing at the idea that somebody asked for a video game and got ice cream.
I'm not laughing at that.
Why?
Because that's not funny. You try putting that into your game console.
You put it into your console. You weren't not satisfied just walking out going, this is not what I asked for. You had so much trust in the ice cream artist that you took it out and then went, well, this is what I asked for. I'm going to shove it inside of this console.
Do you trust capitalism?
No.
Well, there's your problem. I walk into a store. I may as well go in blindfolded. I say, here's what I want.
Yes.
I trust the system and the framework we've built around it as a species.
Give me what I want, corporate daddy.
So corporate daddy, Jeff Bezos?
Jeff Bezos. I am at the trough. Here I am. Time to num.
No, they give me the ice cream.
Right.
I'm thinking.
Okay, yeah.
This must be a video, because clearly I did my part.
Right.
I know they did their part.
Yeah. So how did you end up at Baskin Robbins? You just Googled vanilla?
Yeah, I was like, where do I get vanilla?
Yeah, and they're like, vanilla at Baskin Robbins, 31 flavors. Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. Open a shot case, I guess.
They're like, can I interest you in sorbet? I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Rudy Tooty.
What is that?
Wild and fruity?
Is that Insomniac's new game? What is this? What is this?
I think I'm a little too old for that.
A little bit too old for that.
That's a child's game.
I mean, I'm always fascinated in talking about games where the sequel was either better or worse. Actually, you know what a huge one is for me?
What's that?
Dark Souls 2
Whoa.
was the game that I got into first. I mean, I played Dark Souls 1 only about 60 hours or so.
People listen to this in headphones. Don't do that to them.
People listen to this.
Yeah, I know. I'm shocked too.
I played it about 60 hours. Was not for me.
Right.
You could tell because I put 60 hours into it.
That's a light output for you. Only 60.
And then it was Dark Souls 2 that really got me. But to be fair, I did go back and play Dark Souls 1. It was fantastic.
Right.
So, yeah.
Would you say that's Elden Ring now too? You're like, sequel just didn't.
I'm really trying. With Elden Ring, but it's hard now.
This is your God of War again, where people universally have now come to a franchise in higher numbers.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, I'm not sure about this.
100%. And it makes me feel even more insecure than I normally do about my opinions. I've said this before on the podcast. Every time I talk about Elden Ring on Twitter, I lose followers.
Positively or negatively, doesn't matter.
I'm not saying outrageously positive things about it.
Touché.
And any small element of criticism, even if I'm like, I love this game, but ... people are not cool with that. That's like not good enough. And I've just been losing followers left, right, and center.
So yeah, follow Mikey at Retrograde Mikey.
Yeah.
Get him back.
Get me back into
of his opinions.
Because I'm experiencing a lot of spite towards Twitter these days.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
not a great place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Andrew, I kind of want to move past the what we've been playing gaming segment, unless you got anything new. Have you?
No, I've been playing the same games, other than I did go back and started playing Horizon Forbidden West again. So I am going to I'm going to update everyone when that happens, and whatever. I think it was me staring at Gus Fring while watching Better Call Saul, and I'm like, what am I missing here? And I'm like, oh shit, right, Horizon Forbidden West.
He's in that, eh?
He is. Well, he's in the first game.
Gus Fring is? Like Gustavo or Giancarlo Esposito?
Yeah, Giancarlo Esposito.
Really?
Yes.
He's in the first one.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. I remember the guy from The Wire.
Yes, Louis Riddick.
Yes.
Is also in it. Yes. Unless I'm completely blanking here.
You are so red right now.
Am I?
Yeah.
In general.
In general.
No, I don't think so. Unless I'm just screwing things up.
Well,
and I'm now combining two different games.
Read a little bit more about that game before talking about it on the podcast.
You're right. I have to read the novelization before I play any game.
Yes, of course you do. One thing before we move on from just our general gameplay segment, I do want to mention that Nintendo, a couple days prior to our recording, so about a week prior, 6 days prior to the release of this episode, had their Nintendo Indie World conference that they did. A lot of really good looking games there. Gunbrella looks fantastic.
Yes.
It's this weird, it reminds me of Spelunky based on the graphics a little bit, but also a little bit of the Expendables.
You did it. Broforce?
Broforce, yeah, because they had Expendabros in as like a tie-in there. It looks fantastic. It's almost like they should have called it like the Penguin tie-in for Batman, where you got an umbrella that's also a gun, and that's like kind of like how Shovel Knight just focused on the shovel and that's your attack thing. Just kind of that weird quirky indie thing, that goes on, but it looks really good. The other game that they announced and came out the day of the Indie World announcement was Soundfall, which is this rhythm-based loot shooter, which I'm 100% getting, but probably on the Steam Deck. Looks very good. I will have updates on that after I've had a chance to sit down with them as well. But Indie World looked pretty good by Nintendo. No news on Hollow Knight Silk Song, which is incredibly disappointing, as always, because the more I think about that game, the more I want to go back and play it.
Well, there we go. Okay, so have you touched your Steam Deck since we talked since?
I have. I try to play like 10, 15 minutes before I go to bed of Disco Elysium, because I am...
That's what we've been saying.
The thing I keep thinking about this game is
taking you to task for it.
Hold
your feet
my
to
feet to the fire because I want to play it. My issue is that I don't love playing the game, but I do love the experience of having played it. I feel like that's kind of like how I felt at a lot of moments in Death Stranding before it really took me. And I every time I hear someone talk about Disco Elysium, I'm like, I love everything they're saying. I just need to play the game. I need to finish it so that I have it as an experience in my mind.
Right.
Even if I'm not really enjoying playing it, I think back to some of the moments that I had in it where like someone makes a joke or there's something funny, or even I've been listening to the soundtrack a lot while I'm doing work. And I love all of that. So I think I owe it to myself and to the game to play it. I got to be good to myself. Got to look after me.
What a nice way. You got a little me time.
Even though what I'm saying is that I don't enjoy the minute to minute of me time, but who would? It's me.
Oh, well, wow. A lot to think about there. I'm glad you're playing that. We're going to keep checking in with you weekly, so you better keep up with it.
Okay, I will. I'll give you some updates. Right now, so you can ask me what the update is next time. Right now, I'm standing outside of a door. I found this locked room in the back of a shop that the shopkeeper thinks is haunted. I convinced her that I'm a paranormal investigator, so she let me in. And I found out there's like this phone-in RPG thing, and I'm about to find the history behind it. So
cool.
You can ask me about that afterwards. And if I don't have an answer, then I wasn't playing.
If you change the topic very quickly,
yes.
Yeah, you're like, what about that? Yeah, Overwatch 2
is going well. Yeah,
exactly.
Listen, let's change the topic really quickly to the game of this week. It's obviously Max Payne 3, as we mentioned. The 10th year anniversary just passed a couple days ago as of the launch of this episode. 10 years is a long time. And I think 10 years puts us back to an era in gaming that some people think was pretty damn good. 2012, great era, like great time for games. But I also think that it's a time where maybe camera controls weren't as fantastic as they could. The Xbox 360 had some good games, some bad games, PS3 era. And I want to kind of see how that time frame between then and now ages in gaming. We spend a lot of time playing on the PlayStation 2, but how does the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 age from then till now? Right. That's one of the blind spots that we haven't spent a ton of time with. So I'm excited for it. Andrew, what was your experience with Max Payne 3? Did you play much of this game?
Yeah, I did play the game and I really liked it because, to be perfectly honest, I hadn't played a lot of the older Max Payne games through. It was always just like playing with somebody or somebody else had the game, and then it's also that era of my life where you like couldn't just afford every console or every game. So you're like, I got to play this as, in the scraps that I'd get.
Right.
But this is one of the games I actually got and actually really liked. And so it was really the defining memory of Max Payne in my mind, other than the movie.
Of course, which is basically the only canon we need.
I was going to say, everything kind of works backwards off the movie.
Yeah, why doesn't the games deal with angels more?
Yeah.
Like real angels in the world.
I don't remember seeing Mila Kunis in this.
Yeah.
What the hell?
That Mark Wahlberg looks nothing like the character model of Max.
We really tried to just shove Mark Wahlberg into tons of roles that just
especially video game roles, right? Like why?
He's
Do
nuts.
people like him?
I don't like. That's the thing. Okay, so straight up, I do not like Mark Wahlberg. I don't think he's very good. I think we heap a lot of praise and a lot of success onto him, and I'm not really too sure. You know, like why he's that good. The fact that he won an Oscar, or did he win an Oscar? But he was nominated for an Oscar for The Departed, blows my mind.
Was it what was the Mickey Ward? Oh, the fighter as well. Yes. Was he nominated for that?
I'm gonna go with probably Christian Bale won. I know
Christian
that.
Bale, yes.
But yeah, though I don't like Mark Wahlberg, and I just don't get that you're like, yeah, you know what, we need someone super charismatic that's gonna be like, it's like, really, Mark Wahlberg's?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of like almost like a Nicolas Cage thing. Except that Nicolas Cage will fucking go for it in every role he has. But it's more like, what kind of movie is this? Well, it's got Nicolas Cage, and that kind of tells you what you need to know a lot of the times, where it's like taking some weird risks. It may be weird, but like it's a grab bag with him. Mark Wahlberg just has all these preconceptions of who he is, right or wrong. When he's in a movie, we just bring our own experiences of Mark Wahlberg to that. That could be it.
I don't like, you know, like other than Father Stu. Father Stu's really good. So, yeah. So other than Father Stu, but you know, like it's clear that he's been a celebrity for so long, and he's just gotten universal praises almost his whole life. That or like in his last 30 years or whatever it is. Yeah. Because I always think back to is like he released his like schedule, like what my day-to-day life is like, you know, I wake up at 2:30 in the morning, and then I go get my first workout in, and then I go to mass, and and you're like, what life are you like? If anybody else you knew that did something like this, you'd be like,
you're a psychopath.
You're insane. Yes. I need to help you.
Yes.
And instead, no one will say anything to him because it's like, well, clearly it's working. Like, you know, Mark's Mark, you know, whatever.
Well, if he's happy, maybe I got to start waking up 2 in the morning, going to mass.
I guess so. I guess that's what's working. Go to bed at 3:30 p.m. and it's like I think about the, you know, Rod and Todd from The Simpsons, like time to go to bed and everyone's playing outside and it's sunny and they have to close the blinds. Like that. Yeah. Cool.
First, you put on mass at the gym. Then, as a group, on mass, you go to mass. I mean, this is just, it writes itself.
It's the Righteous Gemstones.
Oh, man.
Like, it really is.
I fucking love that show. So, Max Payne 1 comes out, obviously. I'm not a huge fan of it. Max Payne 2 comes out. I want you to guess, what is the subtitle for Max Payne 2?
More pain? Is it around pain?
Yes. I will say, phonetically, yes.
Oh.
Now that could tell you one of two things.
Painful. Am I close? Painful.
No, Max, not really.
Okay, well then help me out. Okay, thanks. Just let me like struggle.
To me, it's just the most generic subtitle for it. It's called Max Payne 2, The Fall of Max Payne. But in my mind, twice? Yeah, right? That's weird, right?
That doesn't, yeah.
That's bizarre. And you can tell that like come Max Payne 3, they're like, listen, we're Rockstar. We don't do subtitles.
Yeah. To the max?
To the max.
Like, that's better than The Fall of Max Payne.
But the problem is they've always tried to bring like a realistic grittiness to these games, and they really shot themselves in the foot in slow motion when they called him Max Payne. Like, you can't, if they do reboot this and they try to bring that whole sincere like sentimentality to a reboot as they always do in reboots now, they can't have him called Max Payne. That's not going to work.
Maximilian Payne.
Maximilian.
What can you do with Payne? Well, Payne is a last name, like P-A-Y-N-E.
Thomas Payne.
Yeah. Payne Stewart. Oh, no, that was the first name. But yeah, still. But like if you rebooted it though.
Yes.
Couldn't you do it as like a noir, like PI kind of story?
Oh, like lean away from the realism.
But like it is, but it's just stylized. It's stylized realism.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's just like, because like PIs do exist in this world. True. And like what their life would be if somebody just came in and give them a case that would change their life. And you're like, oh, okay, I can imagine that.
A realistic PI game would probably be super boring.
Oh my God, you'd be waiting in your car all the time. Just watching.
This mission is try to go in and get more Burger King without the person noticing you do it.
Oh no, you've run out of pistachios.
There's too many burger wrappers in the passenger seat of your car. Make it over to the trash bin without being noticed by
your greasy little fingies have marked up your window. Oh no.
I got some good news and some bad news. Good news, which is also bad news. I did catch your wife cheating. Bad news, I got greasy fingerprints all over the lens of my camera. You can barely tell who it is.
It's almost a Naked Gun bit where he looks in through his driver's side window and it's just covered in grease. And he's just like, a blonde person of a certain height went into the building at 9:10. I have no idea. And you're like, awesome, cool, great.
That sounds like a movie I'd watch.
Just like this is,
if they made a movie of Max Payne 3, I would watch that as well.
Sure.
To me, it was all about the story.
Who should have been Max Payne?
Honestly, Josh Brolin, not Josh Brolin. Actually, Josh Brolin definitely could have done it pretty well. That. Also, Jeff Bridges, I think.
Jeff Bridges,
could have done it as like this was also 2012 was like the era of, hey, here's the hero you know, but he's aging out of his past selves. Like this was the same year that The Dark Knight Rises came out. So it was just like, hey, here's the hero, but they've aged a little bit. That was like a big story people loved to tell back then. Eh? Do you think you'll be able to fight crime when you're in your 50s?
50s? Mm-hmm. No.
40s?
40s?
No, that as though there were a time where you could
crime fighting was 5 years ago. 50s? Are you out of your mind?
I wonder how old Max Payne is in this. He's probably in his 40s at least. He looks actually kind of in his 50s, maybe.
Yeah, he is. He's looking pretty gruff.
Or rough without the G.
I don't know. I like mine more.
Why does the word gruff exist? Just say rough.
I thought you're the linguist between the two of us. No, I'm the math whiz. You're the linguist.
Right, and I'm saying I think we can consolidate.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Let's streamline
the languages here. We don't need all this flowery poetry.
Yeah, exactly.
Not as flowery as Max Payne's shirts when he hit Sao Paulo after he shaved his head. I love those shirts that he wears. He's super, super touristy. So this is actually the first Max Payne game with a cover system, which I found... I struggled with it a bit because in something like Gears of War, you were kind of like, okay, finding cover, popping up, shooting, popping up, shooting. The way you got pushed from cover is that you got flanked. Similar in Max Payne 3, but they also have a very limited ammo system where you have to constantly go and pick up new weapons and change your weapon loadout. And I found that if you were standing still at any point, that's when you got shot. The game rewarded movement from cover to cover. Right. And it was almost as though being out of cover but moving, you would get shot less than being in cover and standing still and kind of like popping up every so often to shoot. It was trying to tell you, like, keep going.
Yep.
And that's how the rhythm of the game, you're going to find it. And once that clicked for me, fucking hell, I loved that so much.
That's so cool.
Another really cool gameplay element to this game was called Last Stand. I don't know how much of this game you remember because it is from 10 years ago. I forgot about this until I read up on it again. But if you get shot and you're about to die, as long as you have a healing item in you, like painkillers.
Healing item in you.
Painkillers. They need to live. You could have a last stand, which meant whoever shot you, the camera would kind of go towards them in slow motion bullet time. And if you shot them and killed them, then you got back to life. It gave you kind of like a second wind.
I wouldn't have remembered that if you didn't bring it up, but now that you bring it up, I actually remember there was like a clear camera shot about it too.
Yes.
It was very cool looking.
It's a heavily stylized game, which is why, you know, when you're talking about having this be a noir, it's like it kind of already is, with the exception that it's not really black and white. But even like, especially there's a moment in the game because the story is often told in flashbacks, like even to the point where finding out how you got to be working for this giant family in Brazil, you go to like a flashback in New Jersey, Hoboken, New Jersey, which always reminds me of the Bob Goblins in Zelda. Like I just think Bob Goblin and Hoboken, like that's where Bob Goblins come from. And they also share a lot of similar traits. People from New Jersey and Bob Goblins.
A lot of goblins in New Jersey.
Billy Joel.
He's got goblin-like proportions.
He does.
It's amazing he plays the piano for a living.
It is crazy.
His stubby little fingers, are you out of your mind?
Oh, that's why we love him.
But same as Elton John. Piano man. Like you look at Elton John now and you're like, that guy plays piano?
Right.
Like his hands.
He may as well be the center for the Lakers. Like he's
a center for the Lakers. Yes. No, he looks like a Care Bear.
No, like, but that's what I mean is like how is that person playing piano that well?
Okay, yeah.
It's like,
he looks like a troll doll.
Yeah, he looks like a troll doll.
Yeah, like how in that
like the center for the Lakers. Shaquille O'Neal. He's still center, right?
Yeah, I was like, moving on. He didn't retire 12 years ago.
No, so the story, it's 9 years after the second game, Max Payne 2, The Fall of Max Payne. You're working private security in Brazil, and it's a family called the Bronco family.
Okay.
As I mentioned, you'll go into flashbacks to find out how you started working for them, and there was an incident in Hoboken, New Jersey, where you meet this guy who's there for some reason. There's an attack based on a past experience that Max Payne had. The guy's like, hey, this guy's pretty good at shooting things. Why don't you come work for the family? So you do. And that's where you get kind of a second lease on life. You've burned all your bridges in New Jersey. You're working private security in Sao Paulo, but you're also a raging alcoholic.
Yes.
And I remember playing this game. You know, at the time, you really didn't get games that dealt with addiction. You didn't get games that dealt with alcoholism, unless it were kind of like making fun of it in a weird way.
Because your main character wouldn't have weaknesses. You know what I mean? And like, I don't, I don't, it's addiction. I don't perceive them to be weaknesses, but the game would never insinuate that there was anything that your character had to worry about other than kicking ass and getting girls.
Right,
you know
exactly.
I mean? Yeah.
Duke Nukem style.
Yeah, 100%.
Like in Duke Nukem, when he took painkillers, that was cool.
That was awesome.
That was cool.
That was great when he degraded all those women.
And it still is.
Oh, it's
I mean,
tremendous.
Duke Nukem forever in my heart.
Exactly.
As just a
So my
pinnacle.
tattoo says, yeah. Yeah. It says, shake it, baby. Duke Nukem forever.
And you got that tattooed on your heart?
On my heart.
That was one of the first times that's happened.
Yeah. It arthroscopically, like
Yes.
it's under my skin.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That was very impressive. A surgery that I didn't think we needed, but now that we have it, I know I want it.
I skipped in the way of a couple of heart transplants. I'm like, no, tattoo time. And they're like, got it.
Speaking of skipping, your heart skips beats all the time now. It's not doing great. It's not doing great.
Shake it, baby.
But hopefully Max Payne's heart's doing well
Okay.
since he ends up kicking the addiction issues that he's got
Right.
there. Their kid, Fabiana, is kidnapped.
Yes.
And you are tasked with doing the money exchange, the $3 million that the group called the Comando Sombra, a local gang in Sao Paulo, demands. But while you go to do the exchange, a paramilitary group comes in, steals the cash, and now you're dealing with two issues. You don't know where Fabiana is. You don't know who stole it from you. It's a big old mission.
I just want to be clear.
It's a PI. That's what you're going to say, right?
No, well, that I'm going to get to that. But his first thing is, her name is Fabiana Bronco.
And that's almost as good as Max Payne.
Quite a name.
That's almost as
quite
good
a
as Max
name.
Payne.
Fabiana Bronco.
The funny thing is, she gets kidnapped 1 week after you prevent a kidnapping from her other brother, a really annoying kid, a douchebag of a kid.
Okay.
And their dad goes to you like, look, great job on preventing the first one.
Awesome.
No complaints. Fantastic job.
I don't think we'll have to worry about this for a very long time.
Very long. You killed tons of people.
Yeah.
Almost wanted to give you a raise. We're struggling a little bit financially right now, so we can't do that. However,
Yeah.
in recent light of the kidnapping of my other child, it's one of those what have you done for me lately type
100%.
scenarios. Awkward conversation to have.
Fabiana Ford Bronco will not return herself. She needs someone to protect her. She's on the run. She's literally on the run.
How does that year-end review go?
How does the year-end review for being
One of the kids gone. Goodbye.
Yep. Kidnapped.
But you saved the life of another one.
Oh, wait, so he killed the other guy? He killed the other son, or the son's just gone?
No, you saved the life of the son.
Yeah.
Because they tried to kidnap him.
Right.
You did it. Good
Great.
job.
Awesome.
But the daughter, you tried. You failed, but you
Right.
tried.
So
Gave it
you
your
imagine
all.
him sitting in a fluorescent bulbed office.
Yes.
Across a person with a short sleeve,
Right.
suit kind of thing.
Right.
It's hot. It's Sao Paulo, right?
It's Sao Paulo.
very hot.
Yeah, you got to have the short sleeve white
he's
shirt
just
with a black tie.
Yeah, like your job rate is at a 50% right now.
Yes.
That's a little bit lower than we need your projected targets
Yes.
to be. 75%, which presents an issue that half a child would return. That's 1.5 children is safe.
How many fingers is it going to get me to that 55%?
Torso up, torso down. What are we looking at? And he's like, yeah, no, I need a higher rate for this year.
Higher rate of return.
But you need to fix your own mistakes. And now we've lost also some cash too. So not
now
great.
you got to go. And it turns
We're
out
paying
like,
out of pocket, man.
Spoiler alert for the game. It's 10 years old, so also don't give a fuck. But it turns out that that situation in New Jersey that you had was kind of a setup where the guy, which makes a lot of sense. What is this guy from the Bronco family from Sao Paulo doing in New Jersey at the moment that you have to defend yourself? Brings you up. You were basically brought in to be the fall man for the kidnapping, just to kind of muddy the waters a little bit. But I do remember playing through this game and being like, this story is fucking amazing. Twists and turns.
Yeah.
And some twists even more after that.
Well, it sounds like a real story.
It really is.
Whereas the old stories were like, kill people,
Well, that's the thing that Max Payne 1 tried to be that. It had the interstitials with like the comics and it was really trying to be gritty and heartfelt, but I think they didn't realize, as games did often back then, they just by making a game dark and gritty didn't necessarily mean that it was going to be better. It didn't mean the story was going to be good. You still had to write a good story. And I honestly held Max Payne 3 up as like one of the most engaging stories that I had experienced that year in entertainment. My memories of this game are so fond. I remember it was so sunny out. I was at home. I knew my friends were outside playing, and I'm like, I cannot leave right now. I am so engrossed in this game.
It was 3:30 p.m. You had to close the blinds and go to bed soon. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Like Rod and Todd. Yeah.
Rod and Todd and Mark Wahlberg.
I remember I had this big Bose Lug Tread beer, which is a local beer.
Yeah.
And they used to sell them in these big bottles. And I'm like, listen, I'm playing an alcoholic. I'm going to drink at 3 p.m, this giant beer.
Wow.
Hold it with me, playing the game. I was like,
is that what you think an alcoholic does? Drink at 3 p.m? Not 9 a.m? 3 p.m?
Sorry, it was 3 p.m, Greek time.
What does that mean?
It means it was 6 a.m.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah.
You're all hopped up on speed.
Just this feeling of like I felt, it was 2012, so I was 10 years younger. I was 23 at the time. So still kind of coming into my own as a quote unquote adult, and having a beer, playing a video game, watching the medium that I grew up playing.
Yeah.
Age and become more mature. Feeling like I was experiencing the same thing. It was one of the best gaming experiences I've ever had.
Oh, wow.
Like that imbuement of story and grit and substance into a game that I had never experienced before just felt super satisfying. It also just so happened that while I got into like my third of those beers, Max Payne kicked the habit I felt really bad.
We'll do it together, Max. You're pouring it down the drain.
Exactly. No, but in general, I just think that everything moved this towards being a step in the right direction for games and storytelling in games. The soundtrack made by a group called Health was phenomenal. It was a score
ironic.
Instead of very ironic.
Very ironic. Health?
They must be popping so many painkillers.
The soundtrack was made by The Pacifists? What? Get out of here.
And I remember one very big moment in this game is the realization that there is a method of killing people in Brazil, which is real, where a gang will kidnap someone, stack tires up, put the person in the stack of tires, which you cannot move from, and light the tires on fire.
Oh, God.
And I remember seeing that in the game and being like, this is the grossest thing I've ever heard of in my life.
Right.
And at that point, when Max is in his Hawaiian shirt, the aviators, he just shaved his head, he's got the beard, he's looking great, and he's walking through these favelas, and there's so much grit, and everyone's looking at you, and you're like a fish out of water, and you're dealing with a hangover. Like, all of it just felt so... I mean, I can picture it like it was yesterday. Visceral, very visceral. Did you have similar experiences with it?
Yeah, no, like honestly, it didn't hit me the same way you did, and maybe because I wasn't playing in the middle of the day drinking beer and stuff like that.
You should have been.
I should have been. Honestly, it would have hit me more. You know what's funny? The story escalation really reminds me of Fast and Furious. Even to the Brazil part of it. Like,
yeah.
You got to do like a local thing and you're like, just being violent, doing stuff. And then eventually it's international terrorism and, in Brazil also as well. So I think that's really cool. And eventually, because you have to keep growing and getting bigger and bigger and bigger to make the wait seem, meaningful.
It never felt like they bit off more than they could chew. And
not in this game.
I think not in this game.
Yeah.
But, maybe he bought a little bit more than he could drink.
Hey, there we go. Very good. I thought you didn't like flowery language. That was very good.
That was very, very well done. Thank you very much for saying that about how well I said that.
Yeah,
how good I said words there. You know what? I'm excited to play the game because
that's good.
The thing that I hold out hope for is that this was always a Rockstar game, which means the shooting mechanics were never going to be great.
Right.
That's not me trolling. That is just a fact of Rockstar games. And because they were bad then, they're going to be bad now.
Okay, I will say, maybe more than, maybe I won't go the whole way with bad. Rockstar has its own shooting mechanics that are Rockstar shooting mechanics. Whether you like them or not, that's what they are. Some people don't like them.
Right.
Some people who are especially newer to video games do appreciate them because they're very simple.
Right.
So yeah, if you like more specific shooters, you're like, what the hell is this?
Yes.
But Rockstar has its own shooting mechanics.
By the end of playing this, I know this game has a soft lock option and a hard lock option and a free aim option. By the end of it, I was playing free aim because it felt like that was a little bit more fun. But I think we'll probably start off with the soft lock because going back and playing it is probably going to be bad. But the reason I hold out hope is because I definitely didn't love the shooting mechanic. I liked the cover mechanics and I liked the rhythm of the fast-paced movement. which likely won't have changed. So if the story remains the same, I'll probably still love this game. I'm hoping so.
I will say, yeah, it'll also depend on the graphics and the sound. And if it's like there's weird tropey stuff that you're like, oh God, you're eye rolling every couple of seconds.
Yes.
Like, you know, I think that'll be it, because I think the gameplay will be tight enough in the last 10 years where it won't feel like a fish out of water. You know what I mean? Yeah. Much like Max in Brazil. But
right, exactly. So do you want to get into our reviews of this game then?
Let's do it.
Before we do, I'm going to set us up with the ratings that this game got from the general public. An 86 out of 100 overall Metacritic score. Pretty good.
Pretty good.
GameSpot gave it a 9 out of 10. GameSpy a 4.5 out of 5. IGN a 9. Game Informer a 9.25 out of 10. All good scores
those are really
around.
good.
Very good scores. From most of the major publications.
Right.
And then I think a lot of maybe people not liking the grittiness or thinking it took things too far because games weren't supposed to do that, yada, 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 maybe brought the score down a little bit, but still an 86 out of 100 is fantastic. So Andrew, why don't you let us off? This is your retro score, so it is your impression of the game based on what you thought of it when you played it back in 2012.
Okay, so Max Payne, even though this is the most formative memory that I have of the Max Payne franchise, was never a really huge franchise for me. And I start to sit there and I go, why was that? You know, how stupid were you? Well, the answer is pretty stupid, but like, why didn't this hold me in other games around this period? You know what I mean? I have much bigger impressions of them than this one. And I just think it was just that I couldn't, I don't know. For some reason, it didn't stick with me, and I can't individualize any like specific reason why.
Sure.
But it was great. I remember a lot of it, and we start talking about it, and you're like, oh yeah. So it was both kind of important because I've enjoyed it, but it also didn't have the lasting power. So it's going to get a couple of points off for that. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 4.
3 out of 4, that's good. I think a lot of people probably look back on it with the same sort of sense of like good, not amazing.
Yeah.
I think that this game did something different. It took all of Rockstar's capacity to tell a story, which they're fucking amazing at. You know, I talk a lot of shit about Rockstar, but they weave an amazing tale, and they did it in a much tighter way in this. I liked the linear nature of it, which a lot of people didn't like. They wanted open world back then. This was a very streamlined game. Levels, maybe a couple hidden collectibles, but from point A to point B, not too many hidden paths or anything like that. Music was amazing. The presentation and storytelling was heavily stylized, almost like a Guy Ritchie film. Like not exactly that, but a similar kind of sense of personality in the storytelling, like clearly an auteur behind it. Exactly. And because of that and how much I think about this game all the time, the feeling that it gave me, I think if we were grading out of 10, it wouldn't be a perfect score. But because we're grading out of 4, I feel like 3.5 is too low.
Oh, that's
exciting. And a 4 is warranted because it did so much right. And it gave me a story experience in a game that I put up there in like some of the best stories ever told in gaming. And then because of that, 4 out of 4, fucking loved it.
That's fantastic. So we get a 7 out of 8 together with your perfect score there. Man, I'm excited to go play this game. I honestly, there are so many games where you're like, I think I know what I'm getting in this one. I honestly don't know what I'm going to get at all in this one. This could have aged poorly. This could look like it came out 2 years ago.
Right.
I'm excited to play it.
All right, let's do it. Well, we'll see you guys on the other side. If you're joining us over on Patreon to watch us do the gameplay, that's patreon.com/retrograde podcast. We will see you there. Otherwise, it's just a quick break and we'll see you back in 2 shakes of a Max Payne's gun.
Yeah, because he's famous for shaking his gun. He's cutting alcohol out of his system. He's got to shake. See you in 30 seconds.
Just a reminder that you can now find our gameplay segments where we play through a portion of today's game and provide video commentary while doing it over on our Patreon, patreon.com/the-retrograde podcast. Join the Mushroom Club for $5 US per month for access to all the gameplay, plus 2 to 4 bonus episodes per month where we do things like character drafts, top 10 lists, and even take some suggestions from our community. So show some support to the podcast by joining the Mushroom Club at patreon.com/the-retrograde podcast for access to bonus content and all of our gameplay segments. We'll see you guys on the other side.
Do you want to drink your water first?
Yes, please.
I'll let you drink your water first. I'm a nice guy.
I shouldn't have done that.
Oh, that looks so uncomfortable. That looks awful. Good?
Yeah. Maybe just one more. Huh? It's water, I get parched.
Oh, right.
And when I'm about to speak a lot, I'm like, should I wet my whistle?
Mm-hmm. This goes back to your thing about like parched. We already have thirsty. What are we doing? And welcome back to the Retrograde.
Wow. The intro to that, what you said before the intro shook me to my core.
Really? Why is that?
Well, because I didn't hear what you properly said.
Okay.
And now I'm reeling with it, but now I did. Does this ever happen to you?
Does this ever happen to you?
Where someone says something
just the other week,
where someone says something and you're like, what did you say? But by the time you've said, what did you say? You've put it together in your head.
It.
That's what it was. Yes.
And then you have to interrupt them. You're like, they say the part that you needed, and you're like, okay, and you just skip past it.
Yeah. How about you stop talking now? I'm done listening
shut
to
up.
you.
Yeah. I cared so much that I wanted to hear you repeat what you had to say. Now shut the hell up.
Shut the front door.
Hey, very good. Keep it PG around here.
I made another joke, and Andrew said it was good as though it was, but I knew it wasn't. Is he placating me? Does he not really like my jokes? Maybe I should drink a fifth of vodka.
That's pretty good. That's good, Max Payne.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Fabiana's. I found a piece of fabric. You know what the funny part is? Okay, so we just played Max Payne 3. Obviously over at the Patreon, Mushroom Club, patreon.com/Retrograde Podcast. Excuse me. I made a meal of that one. But it was a lot more hard-boiled detective than I remembered. I kind of made a joke about that before, but really it is straight up trying to be a modern version of that.
Yeah, and I think it worked. I like it. I think the fact that they go in and out of from cinematics to gameplay so often really lends itself well to the fact that it has that narrative going through.
Yes.
So like while you're in the middle of a gunfight or walking from one little set piece to another, Max may say something like, hey,
hey, mental note.
That's how she's not for nothing, but
crazy thing happened.
So like that happened.
Piece of fabric down here. Might be Fabiana's. And the best part about that, so he finds a piece of fabric in a bathroom.
Yes.
And he's like, hey, that might be Fabiana's. The thing is, he had just gone through 5 levels of a nightclub, destruction everywhere. Murdered hundreds of people, all that kind of stuff. But he looks at one piece of fabric, he's like, hey, look at that, Fabiana's. And you're like, based on what where are you getting this from? You're surmising this.
You know what? It adds to the flavor of it.
Yeah.
When you start to pick apart also, not for nothing.
Not for nothing. Mental note.
But you killed about 100 people
Yes.
and got shot about 100 times and survived. So there's also that if you're poking holes.
Right. You're right. Absolutely. You're right. We should not poke holes at all.
No.
This podcast ceases to exist after this episode.
If you do poke holes, you plug them up with painkillers. Because painkillers solve everything.
Absolutely. Max painkillers, because the painkillers are everywhere in the level.
Yeah, they are.
They are. Everyone has a pill problem in Brazil.
You know who fucking loves this game? I don't know if you knew this or not.
I don't know.
Pfizer is like a big sponsor.
Really?
Yeah.
Big Pharma?
Big Pharma.
Oh my God.
I was trying to pull the who did the OxyContin?
Oh, I forget the family's name.
Yeah. Great people.
Yes, great. They're salt of the earth. Really nice people.
Salt of the earth. Max Payne worked for them for a while.
100%. Yes. Protecting their daughter, Fabienne. Oh my God.
No, I like all the conceits. I like how wacky it is.
Yeah,
and I like that it doesn't. And here's the thing. I think they could have tried to make it so realistic to the point where you wouldn't be able to argue. Like if they did make it like, I don't know. Well, actually, no, I think they do this at some point where later in the game, Max Payne gets shot once in the back or something like that. And that affects the way he moves. And I'm like, wait, but he's been doing that.
He's been shot hundreds of times.
He's been doing that a lot. Now that I say that, I think it brings it up. But, separating that from the story, I think is easy enough.
I'm not trying to pick action. Like, that's not like, oh, well, one bit. Because what a stupid idea for this game. But it's more that there are better ways that organically you can come with, some better storytelling for it. Like, even if she dropped one of her shoes.
Yes.
It's like, well, she was wearing these kind of shoes instead of a piece of fabric. And Max Payne has a foot fetish. Right. So it's like a double whammy, right? But I also think it just shows that maybe, storytelling in gaming has been the biggest progression that when we do this podcast, from doing these old games to now, you are required to tell a tight, good story in these games.
If you look back at some of the games that we were doing in like the 90s to the games we're doing now, graphically, they're almost on par.
Yeah.
They're like the same. I'm thinking like, we played golf on the NES.
Golf.
And there were times that I was playing Max Payne where I was like, oh, I thought I was just about to hit a golf shot.
Right. Yeah. You're like 4 iron. I don't know what, 998 wind in your face.
And then I got shot and I was like,
And I'm like, Mike, you're dual wielding.
Oh, you're dual wielding.
And you're Supermaning bullet time as you fly forward. The funniest thing in the world.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. But I know your point. I know your point.
You know what I mean? Like that is the biggest progression. Graphics, sound, controls, all those kind of cameras, they definitely have moved along. But now we really require you, especially in the last 10 years, because it's 2012.
Yes.
And I will say the graphics look pretty good.
That's a good point. Yes.
But the story is the thing that's like, okay, you better be good or you're getting out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's almost to the point where a lot of people play. I think this is the case, not to keep bringing this up, but like with Red Dead Redemption 2. People are like, the story, it's worth playing for the story alone. And every time I bring up something like an issue I have with the mechanics or the player movement or the pacing of running versus walking and all that stuff, and the pacing of the mission structure, oh God. And how boring the fishing mechanics are and all the ancillary stuff that would not fill its own game.
And you wouldn't believe that Mikey makes jokes about him not being a happy guy. You wouldn't believe it based on this. A universal game about being a cowboy traversing the West. And you're like, the fishing mechanics, this will not pass over my fucking dead body. Yes. What was your original point?
But based even all those complaints aside, which it's a lot of those things are largely accepted as true, even though I'm saying them negatively. Like the shooting mechanics aren't good. There are issues with like the fishing, the pacing, and the movement speed, all that stuff. What else?
Fishing game off again. I need to make this fishing point clear.
The card players have too many tells. But in spite of that, the story, they're like, it's worth playing for the story alone, in spite of that.
Yep.
So that is a good point. Yep. Like, story does mean more for games than it ever has before. The Last of Us as well. In fact, sometimes sometimes that's the only thing worth playing a game for, and in spite of that, it's a good game.
Yeah. Well, it's like going to Top Gun and going like, this soundtrack wasn't that great.
Right.
I don't know, man.
Right. So I don't know.
Which is, by the way, I'm not trying to paint all over every mistake because I like things or not, but sometimes the end does justify the means in a lot of art. You know, and like, let's be clear, like this is art. Mikey and I have made that pretty clear that we think video games are art. Absolutely are. And there is a certain aspect of like, man, that sucked. Did you enjoy it? And you're like, I did enjoy it. Okay.
There is definitely an element to that. And I remember the raw enjoyment of Max Payne 3 when I played it back in 2012 was there.
Yeah.
I do think the pacing is slightly different than I remember. The cover mechanics aren't as clicky and they're not as, I don't want to say forgiving, but they're not as responsive. Even the bullet time feels a little bit more gimmicky because it's happened before and it's happened better now. I kept like talking about the soft lock and how boring it made the game. But you know, we were still dying sometimes in spite of that. So you kind of needed it. I think the balance of the enemies is out of whack in this game. Yeah. I think that the aiming mechanics are bad in this game. I think that the speed at which Max moves needs to be balanced. I think the run needs to be faster and the walk needs to be a little bit slower, or just a little bit more seamless. Like think about Last of Us. When you move, your character model kind of shifts and changes, but it always feels organic. Yeah. This is very Rockstar in the fact that it hasn't. And in spite of all those issues, I still enjoyed every set piece.
I think Rockstar is a good example for what I kind of just said too.
Right.
Like, and by the way, what I said about like enjoying stuff and then you could pick holes at it. The inverse is true too, where you're like, there's so much good about it. Why is this not fun?
Yes.
You know, I feel this way about, you know, this game. I just think everything you were saying.
God of War, kind of like a little bit.
Yeah, because you're like, there's nothing individually wrong with this. I'm just not having fun playing it.
Halo, the new Halo is that for me 100%.
Okay, explain.
I didn't really, I don't think I've talked about this much on the podcast, but I was super excited for Halo Infinite. And I obviously got my Series X. I played through it on Game Pass quite a bit. The open world, adding that, everyone who listens to this podcast knows already, I'm not a huge fan of open worlds for the sake of it just being an open world, but it's a fun ass game. The minute-to-minute, the gameplay is fun, the shooting is fun, and this and that, but that's all it is. And then in spite of that, the set pieces are cool. I'm like, this is fun. Like, I should be having fun. Why don't I like this game?
Yep.
And so that's exactly the opposite. Yeah.
And I think like everything you were saying about the movement and stuff, it's just inconsistent.
Yes.
There's like sometimes you're like, whoa, they got me?
Right.
You're like the shooting sometimes is either they're a sharpshooter or they're a stormtrooper.
Right.
They can't hit the broadside of a barn.
Right.
You know? And so there was just parts of that where you're like, and yet I still was like, okay, let's go again. Let's move it up, you know?
Did you like, because I know a lot of people don't like this in games and it depends on the balance of it, but I've come around on it quite a bit, but the feeling of constantly needing to change weapons.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I know that in something like Breath of the Wild, it bothers me. In melee games, it doesn't always work for me unless it's something slower paced like Condemned, Criminal Origins, which we did on this podcast a couple of years ago.
Yep.
But in this game, always needing to roll through and change weapons and get new weapons and pick up ammo made like almost a miniature exploration game in the middle of a gunfight that I liked because, again, it rewards movement and it makes you feel like you're never safe in cover just because the enemy can't shoot you. They're constantly wrapping a net around you. Yeah. And that net includes your own ammo. So you need to constantly be moving, evading them, picking up ammo. It happens in a way where, like in a Rockstar game, usually it would be, there's an animation to pick up ammo, which is like stops, moves down, skins a crocodile, pulls ammo out of it. But in this, you just kind of roll over it. Yeah. And it's a good way to let you know, like, okay, you got this gun or you got this ammo. Keep going. I like that.
I don't mind that at all because each gun handles very differently.
Yes.
And that part is like that. So that makes it worth it.
Right.
You know, you should go find other guns. The shotgun handles very different than the SMG. The SMG handles different than the revolver.
Yes.
And so like trying to seek those out or trying to switch them around, or like we're saying that you can go between the dual wielding, but if you have dual wielding, you drop your fourth gun.
Yes.
Or third gun.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, so I won't because I want to hold on to the shotgun.
God,
I love that strategy.
That's such a fucking, like, that is such a cool Rockstar thing of like, say you have a pistol and you have a revolver, or you have a pistol and an SMG, and then you pick up a shotgun. You kind of, and you have the SMG in your right hand and you're just single wielding it. You're holding the shotgun in your off hand.
Yes.
And your character model changes and his animations change based on the weapons that he's holding. I love that. That's such a cool attention to detail that works so well with Rockstar. I just want Rockstar and Insomniac to have a baby. That's what I want. I want this company that has such a solid attention to detail and character design. Fucking level design in Max Payne 3 is outrageous.
Crazy.
But then also make it fun.
You didn't have fun playing that game?
No, I did have fun playing this game. I did.
I just want to be clear.
More fun than I would have had playing. This is not a joke.
Wow, are you getting paid to? It's like every time you mention them, you get 10 cents or something.
Yeah. I'm an anti-Rockstar lobbyist for anti-Red Dead lobbyist. But I think that because the set pieces and the world is designed around these smaller, tighter gunfire exchanges, I think because of that, the pacing works better. Whereas in Red Dead, a lot of the times the gunfights are taking place like in a town where which of course it's a Western, but because the pacing of the fighting isn't quite what Max Payne is, everything just feels a bit more slow and plotted. And because I think the fact that you have to keep moving and you have to keep picking up guns and you have to keep a certain rhythm to the combat is what makes me have fun in Max Payne. Right. Whereas that's kind of non-existent in Red Dead.
Okay, that's totally fine. Are we reviewing Red Dead today?
Can we?
Oh. You want to see the biggest difference in score we've ever had?
I'd still give it a really good rating.
Would you?
Yeah, 100%.
You just complain the whole time?
Yeah. I want this to be better. Yes. If it were a complete shit game, I wouldn't be talking about it.
I'm not mad. I'm disappointed.
Yep. I'm disappointed in Daddy Rockstar.
Daddy Rockstar. You know, the thing is, I like Rockstar games. I like the GTA games. I like Red Dead. I liked Bully when we played it.
Yes.
And I like this. And obviously they all live in the same world in some capacity, right? Because the controls and the graphics and the way that the camera moves, the actual design of the characters, design of the levels, those will change.
Right.
But they all do handle themselves the same way.
Yeah.
So it's already built in that I'm like, oh, I'm going to like this.
Sure.
Unless it's it takes some chance or is so aggressively out of the way. You know what I mean?
That's true. It feels like it's pretty, I don't want to say it doesn't take risks because it definitely does, but it does ground itself in a certain level of like control and expectancy where you're not going to go too far beyond that. And it wows you in its level design and it's kind of like grandiose set pieces, which I want to talk about. There's a moment in this game in the level that we played where we take into a helicopter and we're kind of providing air support. We've got a carbine in our hands, and with the soft lock, it's literally like you press a button to win. It's like you would be filed away as a cheater if you were doing this in Overwatch. Like enemies are coming from everywhere. You don't know where they're going to come. If you try to do the free aim, it doesn't give you enough time to even notice where they're coming from unless you've played the level enough times to know where to pre-aim before you've immediately failed the mission. They get to the person you're chasing. So what you do is you have the soft lock on. You just hit left trigger, right trigger, boom. I'm not even kidding. You could do that with your eyes closed.
Well, you and I were having a conversation while doing it.
Yes.
And sometimes we weren't even looking at the screen.
Yes. And the thing is, it was a really cool set piece. Everyone loves an air support level in a game, right? However, the way that this one plays out, it makes it so uncool that it's basically a quick time event is what we're playing. Yeah. And I think that really is a detriment. I think it all comes down to the fact that if they had balanced the difficulty, the enemy AI towards a better aiming system, everything would have been saved. Unfortunately, that's not what we're dealing with, so it will be baked into the review that I give it. But maybe it's time, Andrew. You ready to get into the reviews?
Yeah, let's do it. In our previous scores and our retro scores, we got a 7 out of 8. That's a really high score. It's gonna have big shoes to grow into.
Oh
here.
Yeah, baby.
All right. So my score in the modern, you know what? Like I said, I'm a Rockstar kid. I'm a groupie, they might say.
Okay.
Because I like Rockstar games. And when I play this game, it's like I got the pre-release and I got to practice a little bit.
Sure. Because you played in the beta or something like that.
I'm like, I'm already pretty good at this.
Yeah.
And then you kind of add a nice storytelling layer to it. And one of the things that Rockstar has gotten really good at in the last couple of years is storytelling. And I'm invested in this game. We played this, and I can't believe it's from 10 years ago. I thought it just handled well. It looked good. There are some mechanics that are very independent and unique to this game. I thought it was so much fun, and I can't wait to play it again. I want to play this game again.
Amazing.
I'm going to give it 3.5.
3.5? Yeah. So you're going up a bit in your score. That's awesome.
I can't believe it. I don't know what was wrong with me 10 years ago. Well, lots probably, but...
Yeah, I think it's... You know what I would kind of attribute it to? It's like in an era where... like a 2000s era where action movies are coming out by the dozen and they're not very good. They're just cheap and whatever.
Cheaper by the dozen.
Yeah. Which is my favorite action movie.
Yes.
Of all time.
Somehow there's Cheaper by a Dozen too. I don't really understand.
Cheaper by the baker's dozen.
Cheaper by the... They get a dog.
Yeah. When another action movie comes out, everyone immediately dismisses it. But then like Fast 5 comes out and it's really good.
Yes.
And I bet you a lot of people experienced the release of Fast 5 and wrote it off, assuming it was going to be like every other action movie at the time. Max Payne 3 is probably similar.
Yeah.
Lot of cover shooters at the time. And you're probably just looking at it like, this is just another one of those things. But looking back, you now have a better understanding of what made a cover shooter good. Mm-hmm. And you're applying that logic to it and saying, no, everything holds up with this. This does everything right. It isn't just a generic other one. So I understand why you'd have a lower score in the past.
Yep.
I cannot hold up my perfect 4 out of 4. It just doesn't quite have that feel for me. I did like the story, but I've lived through it, so I don't know if living through it again.
You were also kidnapped.
I was kidnapped as well. They
by your mother.
By my mother. My mom hucked me into a stack of burning tires, and was one of the, not the worst, but one of the worst days of my life.
Okay. Yeah, it was up there.
Yeah, there was this other time where I thought that World of Warcraft was sold at a Baskin and Robbins, and that was the worst day of my life.
I honestly thought you were going to say, I opened a game, it's called Red Dead Redemption 2, and I'm like, oh my God. Oh God. What did this do to you?
Well, speaking of tire fires.
Mm-hmm. Oh God.
No, I think that the accent around the game, the story, the coloring of it is still there and it still works very well. The gameplay and the lack of weapon differentiation, which I know we experience less of or more of in this game because we played an earlier level, but it doesn't really change anything too much, and it will start to feel a little bit samey. And with that lack of like fluidity to the character movement, which I think is something that The Last of Us does really well, and this doesn't do so well. I don't know that I'd have so much fun playing through the whole thing. Okay. And even we talk about The Last of Us and how much I initially did not take to the combat until I leaned into what it was expecting of me, which was the same thing as Max Payne. Keep moving, keep doing this, keep doing that. The difference is now you can throw bottles. Now you can set traps. Now you can, it's a little bit more puzzly with dogs and this and that. It basically does the Max Payne formula, but does it better than Max Payne did it. So there's something out there if I wanted to scratch that itch that I could play. I'm giving this one still a 3 out of 4.
Okay.
It's still good, but it's a full point drop for me because the mechanics just kind of felt a little bit more stale than what I was used to.
So that's with a 7 out of 8 in our retro score and a 6.5 in our current score. Well, Mikey said he was bad at math. He's not that bad at math. He figured it out pretty quick, but I'm going to let Elliot tell us when we do the award ceremony, which I think is coming up right now.
All right. I can't wait. Let's go over to the red carpet and let's get this thing started.
You've been waiting for it all year. The most glamorous award ceremony of the week. Ladies and gentlemen, the Grady's.
Okay, I'm here. And Andrew, I gotta be honest with you.
What's that, buddy?
I fucking feel sick to my stomach.
Why? You feel sick?
I feel like
Too much vanilla ice cream?
Too much vanilla ice cream in my computer disk drive, in my floppy disk drive. I feel like I need to flop down on a bed and take a nap because I feel so sick to my stomach.
Oh no!
That I prevented this from getting a potential award.
We are not the purveyors of this. Elliot, for some reason, we've given him the power to tell us what the awards are. I don't know why that
Elliot
is.
shaved his head for this moment.
Yes, he looks
looking
tough.
Good, looking good,
buddy.
looking
tough. Buff.
Still couldn't grow the beard. It's very patchy.
Yeah, I know.
Very patchy.
It's good to know you're not perfect.
Good. Yes.
Yeah.
No Kurt Hennig, you might say. Right?
Absolutely.
Elliot, why don't you reach into the pocket of that Hawaiian shirt and let us know what awards this game won?
The Field of Childhood Dreams.
If you play it, they will review it fondly.
Wow. Beautiful. Oh, yeah. There we go. It's not enough to have a drop, but we got to come back with always more noises. Did you not hear it? It's about baseball. And race cars. Oh, you didn't like that? Was that vibrating? You vibrating your
it vibrated
your mustache?
my little mouthies.
My little mouthies. So it wins a Field of Dreams. Field of Childhood Dreams, excuse me.
That's where the retro
Field of
score
Dreams
is
is a movie.
7 or higher.
Yes.
Field of Dreams is a movie.
Oh, we always talk about this, right? You've never seen it, and you're always unaware of what it is.
Yeah, that's the movie about
Baseball in a cornfield.
children. Right.
James Earl Jones.
Right. He's got the lightsaber.
No.
His son, the lion,
son?
survives him.
The Lion? Mm-hmm. Well, no, I don't even know what movie you're referencing.
He dies in a stampede.
Oh no, that's Lion King. No, that's also not the right movie.
Okay.
It's Kevin Costner trying to connect to his dead father. Well, so if
Tell me they're going to play baseball.
Well, of course they're going to play
So this
baseball.
is Lion King.
What version of Lion King did you watch? There's baseball in Lion King?
I mean, I got it from a torrent site. I just
Right.
have to trust it. So basically, it starts off, a new baby lion is born.
Yes.
A big baboon wipes off the placenta,
Yes.
wipes a little fruit onto that lion's little
Yes,
forehead.
yes.
We don't know what that means.
No.
Raises it up to everyone. Goes and looks out on the crowd, and guess who's in that crowd? It's a cornfield, and a bunch of ghosts start walking out of it.
No. I think you had two movies spliced together. I think that might be it. I don't think so, eh?
I don't think
You
so.
really think that was supposed to be the movie? That they show an animated lion to the whole world, and then real life corn ghosts come out.
Right, voiced by Donald Glover.
Donald Glover?
Yeah, he voices the real life.
Yes, Simba. Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Well, yeah, I
I mean,
guess
it does become real at some point.
No, I guess so. Can you show me this movie later?
So now who's crazy?
Yeah, I honestly, I feel it.
Andrew, I would love to show you, but it only plays at one theater. And that is Tet a Mikey.
The Theater of the Mind.
Theater of the Mind.
Well, there we go. Field of Childhood Dreams for Max Payne 3. And the reason why Mikey was so exasperated earlier is because we were 0.5 points,
Yes.
5.5 bits away from getting it into the Hall of Fame, the Chevy Silverado.
And as someone who gave it a 4 out of 4 in the retro score, I am bummed it doesn't make our main Hall of Fame, the Chevy Silverado like a Rock Dwayne Johnson & Johnson Family Company Trophy Hall of Fame trophy. I would love to award it that, but we cannot.
God, so short. Just almost there. Right on the door.
So short, like the lifespan of one Max Payne facing down a bunch of people in a favela.
Yeah, maybe if you shove some painkillers in his mouth, he could have gotten to the Hall of Fame. Unfortunately, no, but you know what? I had a ton of fun playing Max Payne 3.
Wouldn't it be funny? Wouldn't it be hilarious, Andrew?
What about this?
If you got shot a bunch
and
in Max Payne 3, not in real life, that would be hilarious.
That'd be so funny.
You're getting shot so much it looks like you're dancing a little bit.
Weekend at Bernie's.
Castanet's playing.
Yep.
And you're taking painkillers. Health goes down.
Right.
Health goes down.
Oh, no.
Or you keep getting shot.
Oh, no.
You keep taking painkillers.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you take one more, overdose.
Oh, you die of an overdose.
Yes.
Wow. So it's one way or another, it's going to get you.
It's going to get you. And isn't that why we play video games? To escape that inevitability?
Of death? Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think it's to confront it.
Oh.
Because death is coming for all of us. We will all die. Father Time is undefeated. And it's
great record.
The GOAT. Yeah.
Right.
And yet, we have to deal with death all the time in video games.
That's true. You know how I'm going to confront death?
How's that?
I'm going to jump straight at it Superman style and pull a time with 2 guns in my hand.
We didn't talk about that. Max Payne, when he did the Superman dives, made the weirdest noises. Like, I get that it's like, it's better than him going like, no, or something like that. But him going like, and jumping 30 feet to the side in slow motion.
It's kind of like a dad getting up from a sofa.
Yes. Okay, here we go.
Guess I gotta shoot some Brazilians in the face again.
That was your dad, not Max
That's
Payne.
my dad, yeah. Knock at the door. Well, guess I gotta shoot some Brazilians. What the hell happened to this neighborhood? Okay, well, thank you so much for listening to the Retrograde podcast. We love every single one of you, and we can't wait to talk to you soon. My name is Andrew Bascom, and with me, as always, is the bad boy of Patreon, Mr. Bebop himself,
Mikey Aaronworth.
I meant bad boy of podcasting. This is the Retrograde podcast.
Game over. Want more Retrograde in your life? You can visit our website for show notes at theretrogradepod.com. Follow us on Twitter at Retrograde Mikey, at Retrograde Andy, and the podcast at Retrograde Pod.
Or Instagram at the Retrograde Podcast.
For bonus episodes, check us out at patreon.com/theretrograde podcast.
Send your questions and business inquiries to the retrogradepodcast@gmail.com.
See you next week, D-pads.
Furnished by Sad Styles Productions.